Welcome to another YouTube video. On this video, I'm just going to talk about, well, the main topic around here is EditorConfig, but how to use EditorConfig on Visual Studio, but I'll just give a background around why I recorded this. So first things first is that we normally want, when we do code reviews, when we are working in a team of software engineers, who basically push code on a frequent basis, working on the same project and all of that. We want to kind of standardize our code base and make sure that people conform to standards that we actually deploy as a team or standards that we actually put in place as a team. So basically what happens is normally when you submit a pull request, you'd have a code review going on. And here, this is a picture that depicts what happens between a bad code and a good code. So a good code, you'd have a couple of pointers on your PR or on your pull request where people are saying, did you pay attention to this? Did you pay attention to that? But it will be limited kind of, comments essentially. But then when you've written bad code, essentially what would happen is you'd have a lot of people commenting on your PR and having a lot of comments telling you WTF, WTF, WTF. Dude, some of these things become, super junior level kind of mistakes that we make. So how do we get to write clean code, clean code that is maintainable, that is all of those type of properties that we want? So essentially code that someone should look at it and they should be willing to read whatever code and be able to understand and work on the system. More so juniors who now join the team. Cool. The stemming of how to write clean code basically talks about how is a solution architected. So you have things like layered architecture, you have onion architecture, kind of telling you how to structure your project and all of those type of things. After that, it's up to how people write their classes. Now, when you write your classes, how you write your classes, your functions, your use of polymorphism, inheritance, and all of those type of OOP principles. There's a book by Robert C. Martins, who is commonly known as Uncle Bob, who wrote a book called Clean Code. I highly recommend that you read this book because it is very, very valuable. So cool enough with all of those type of biblical conversations. Let's jump into the details. So why I looked into .EditorConfig was when I was working in a team, I wanted to see if there was a way that we can standardize some of the principles that we enforce in a team in terms of our code base. Can we control what users do on our code base and all of that? So based on that, what I came up with was a couple of information. Well, a couple of links where now I was looking at style guides and all of those type of things. So I went to C#codingguidelines.com, and when I look at that particular style guide, it was written by a team from Aviva Solutions. So when you look at that, this is a basic intro of how their standard is written, some guidelines to say which one are critical, which ones are less critical, and all of those type of things. On top of being a coding guideline, it actually has a design element to it. So they tell you how to design classes, how to design for malicious code. So if you wanted to detect malicious code, you'd look at things like what you call throw the most specific exceptions that are appropriate. So don't just throw a system exception, just throw a space exception that is more specific to the problem that you're looking at. So those are the type of things that they're talking about. Then on a general coding standard, they talk about naming. So on the naming, they tell you to use English, language when you're writing your code, and they talk about the type of casing that you should use for different things. Say, for example, a namespace, you should use Pascal. Then for your class and interface, Pascal. Then you have things like local variables and all of that using camel casing essentially. So that's what I was looking at. So when I was looking at this style guide, it became very, very intuitive, and I liked how they documented things. So from there, what I decided was read up on this, and I recommend that you read up on this because it takes inspiration again from this book that I mentioned previously. So cool. So as a C# developer, how do I get this standard in place essentially in our project? So there's a couple of ways to do it. One of the ways is to actually install this particular NuGet package, so called C# guideline analyzer. So I think it's internally it's using Roslyn to do some sort of validation of whatever rules that you've enabled. So I'm assuming there's a way to actually on your project file, .cs project file, be able to specify all the policies that you want to activate, and if they are either information warnings or errors or whatever the case might be, you'd be able to configure those. So those are, let's say, for example, the codes. This codes is when you read this thing, you'll see essentially it will have a code in that nature. So that code basically reflects whatever code that would be there. And here they tell you the basics of how to set it up and all of those type of information. I'll share this link to you as well. So in my quest to find all of this information, I then went into how Microsoft actually does this thing. Can I get something, because I'm heavily dependent on Visual Studio? Can I get something out of the box that basically helps me with this thing to enforce styling and all of that? And I came to the .NET editor config. So here there's a couple of policies that these guys have been put in place that I'll share with you, but particularly I'll look into the .NET editor config and how it works and all of those type of things. So cool. Just tune in to the next video and you'll get links regarding how to set it up and all of those type of things. Cool. Thanks, guys.